Hey guys, hope you guys doing good. Just wanted to jump on, say happy new year. Hope everybody's doing amazing, and just want to talk about the end of 2021 and moving into 2022, and kind of talk about, what are the plan for the channel, for me, for you, what you guys are looking to accomplish in 2022. I'd love to hear about it, but we're gonna keep a laid back stream today. But I do want to talk about kind of like, whenever you start anything, right, you need to have a system, you need to have a plan, and sometimes that's not how things start. Sometimes you just start doing stuff before even realizing what we want to do. So I just want to talk about what I learned from 2021, things that I would do differently for 2022, what I'm going to do for 2022, at least what are my plans, and also what would I do if I were to do things differently, starting out. And we have Adrian here, represent with, heart emojis. Fantastic. We have Alex here. Here we go. Yeah, here we go. I'm kind of like, didn't prep. This is as good as I'm going to look today, which is who cares? Because I just want to chat with you guys. I hope you guys had a happy new year, happy holidays. I hope you guys accomplished, at least not accomplished. I hope you guys had fun with your family. What am I saying? Accomplished. Like, the most important part, on the holidays is that you chill with your family, make time to relax before you guys get back into swing of things. So Horace, what's up? Great to see you. Hope you had a happy new year. Anyway, today's show I just wanted to kind of talk about ending 2021, talking about my learning journey from past year, what I did, and also where am I going next? What is the goal for me in terms of my learning journey? And number 3, for those of you who are just starting out, or maybe those of you who already started but you're still kind of trying to figure out what to do as a beginner looking to learn web development, I'd like to share with you some of the things, like knowing what I know now. If I were to do things a little bit differently, how would I do them? And Casey, what's up? What up? Just starting to learn this year. I'm 32. Well, awesome, because let me tell you, you're starting earlier than I did. So if I could do it, you could definitely do it. But definitely want to have conversations with you. Definitely want to chat with you guys. Definitely want to talk about anything you guys want to talk about. So let me know. And so gonna keep it kind of like open, because I definitely want to hear from you guys. I hope you guys are drinking something. I'm drinking my caffeinated beverage, And so hologram, nunchucks, now it's just hologram. What's up? Good to see you. Hope you had a happy new year. Hope you guys are ready. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of do this little celebratory kind of type of stream. Hopefully you guys are going to enjoy it as much as I enjoy talking. But before we even get started, thank you for all of you guys who've been supporting this channel. It's been a hell of a journey for me, because I literally started as some dude who was trying to get into web development when I first started this channel. And then over time, I actually ended up breaking to the field, getting a job, and continuing my growth as a developer. And so, that's kind of what we're going to talk about. But speaking of Lucky, what's up? Good to see you, my man. Hope you had a great holiday. I hope you had a good celebration for New Year. And so as we are here finishing 2021, I just want to say I'm grateful for all of you guys who've been supporting the channel. Like I said, I'm some dude on the internet who's just struggled his way into becoming a developer late in his life, switching careers. And so to me, if I could share something that could help somebody else make the transition, switch careers, or at least continue with it and not give up, then mission accomplished. And all I want to do is give you like my real story of how I struggled through to get to where I am. And I say struggle in a good way, because the truth is learning to code is not as easy as some people make it out to be. And it's actually pretty difficult and challenging. There's a lot to learn. So having a path, having kind of a goal of what you want to do and where you want to go is very important. So just the other day, like before finishing up the new year, I was like, you know what, let me take a look at some of the technologies that I explored in the past couple of years, and especially in 2021, and kind of tell you what my goal is for focusing, at least for me, on my personal journey, and kind of what the goal is. And so this is kind of like this is not in any particular order, but maybe it is kind of. And hey, thanks, Daniel. Great to see you on the stream. Hey, Paul, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you and your family. I hope you had a wonderful time with your family. So this is kind of my little roadmap. And I'm not saying that I'm an expert in all these technologies. I'm not saying that's all of the things that you want to or even have to learn. But in no specific order, I guess they're kind of like order of importance of how I would learn. And I'll give you a more detailed thing what you should do when you're just starting out. But the first thing I have here is, this icon. I thought you'll see my mouse. There's my mouse right there. We have the Git logo, GitHub logo, to be more clear. And the idea is you do have to familiarize yourself with basic Git flow and how to be able to commit code to GitHub, how to merge code, like the basic workflow, how to be able to work in a separate branch, how to do a pull request before merging it. So getting comfortable with Git is super important, and there's a lot of resources online that you can learn. But I would say that everybody who's starting out, don't wait too long, but as soon as you can, start little by little understanding Git. And you don't need a lot. You just need to know the basics so you're able to actually start committing stuff to your GitHub account, building that history of the code that you wrote. And then obviously I have HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and Sass. Now, one thing that I want to say about HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and Sass, and pretty much including every other technology, you guys have to understand when you're learning to code, the knowledge that is out there is vast. There's way more to learn than there's actually time, believe it or not. And so when I talk about HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and Sass, I'm talking about it in learning the basics so you could start building some basic websites with HTML, CSS, vanilla JavaScript, and at least knowing enough JavaScript so you could move down to the second column and start learning framework like React or Angular or Vue. I personally recommend React because there's still plenty of jobs out there, and it's definitely a great way to get your foot in the door. And when it comes to HTML, CSS, JavaScript, to this day, I still learned something. Even HTML, I still learned something new. So don't feel like you have to master everything, but you do have to have a basic understanding of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and Sass to be able to create some simple projects. And one of the projects here, I could actually show you. I actually been building this on the live stream. If you guys follow me on Tuesday's live stream when I code, I'm going to show you community one project.com. And basically what I'm trying to do with this project is to create oh great, I can't even spell community one project.com project. Come on, enter. Okay, so if you go home, so this is obviously not done. This is something we're building with a community project. On Tuesday night stream, I talk about the technologies I use. You could tune in there, but I do have a simple example here of a basic HTML and CSS site you guys should be able to build when you are learning HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And I'll go to the live demo just to show you a simple example. And so here's a simple portfolio website that's built with basic HTML, CSS, and some light JavaScript. And this is something you should be able to do on your own, or at least 80% of it as you're starting out. And this is like a pretty good first project to build. I just wanted to share it to you guys in the context of this journey here. Once you learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and Sass, you'll be able to build something like this. And this is something that you should build as your first project, a bare minimum, a simple website which basically uses HTML, CSS, and I'm using JavaScript for basic form validation. So notice all the fields are empty. It doesn't let me submit the form until I fill in the information here. And there's some JavaScript in the background that handles the logic and all this other great stuff. So that's the very first simple project building a simple website with just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Let me take a look at the comments before I mumble on more about some of the stuff and the technologies that are involved. And I do show you some of my sample projects here. And if you're ever interested, and obviously this is not anywhere near done, this Community One project that we're building, by the way, the goal here is for me to create a place for you guys to be able to log in, right, and be able to share your projects that you built. So we have one test user here, James, who was excited enough to kind of share his project that he's building. I could leave comments here. This section is not done yet, but if I find a bug in his project, let's say I'm in the live demo and I'm kind of playing with his project, or I find a bug, I can actually submit a bug here by filling out this form. Again, the functionality is not done yet, but it will allow users to be able to submit bugs on their friends' projects that you see. And I'll show you as an example. For instance, I am going to use this to manage Community One project here, right here, details. If you could take a look, I already have some to-dos that I submitted for myself to work on. But anyway, the reason why I'm showing you this project, this would be like your fourth project, basically a project that, or your third project that has some complex functionality where you're working with a backend. Regardless if you make a backend yourself or not, this is made with Strappy, but you will have to have some sort of application where you have, or at least starting to add some functionality which involves authentication, maybe reset password with email, stuff like that. You could have a blog section. Again, this is not done yet, but I'm just kind of showing you work in progress. We have this section for bugs. If you want to see bugs, you have to log in. If you want to see at least all the bugs that are available, and I always forget my password here. Let me log in. Coding after 30. You would think I would know my password. There we go. Once you log in, you could go to bugs and you will see all the bugs available for all the projects. Currently, I just have bugs for my projects, but I'm just showing you that this is taking shape, and not to kind of get lost, I just used it to kind of show you the basic HTML, CSS, and JavaScript project that you guys should all be able to start to feel comfortable building after you spend time learning the basics of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and Sass. And again, I'm not giving you the kind of like, this is what you have to do. I'm just kind of sharing with you guys what I did and the approach that worked for me. And so for the first year, this is something that I would, or first 3 months to 6 months, I would say I would focus, at least 3 months, I would focus on HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and Sass. And then after that, we go to row 2, where you want to get comfortable with APIs. But before I get into this, let me just say hello in the comments here. We got Northern Chip, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you, my man. I hope you had a great time. I hope you and your family were able to celebrate good holidays. I hope everybody's doing good. And then Alex says, true, way too much stuff to know and just less and less time to learn it. 100% true. And you need to basically make sure that you guys are keeping yourself within scope of things that you have to learn, that you don't rush too much. Now here I have a lot of different things showing, but when you're starting out, I would just focus on the first row. Now the second thing that I did when I started learning, there's a reason why I have some of these technologies, but I would say you want to learn how to work with basic API, meaning being able to make API requests either with vanilla JavaScript, or in this row you'd start learning like a third-party JavaScript framework like React, and learn to basically work with React and or vanilla JavaScript and API application. And one easy example here, and this is from a Coding Addict course that I took a while ago. Let me go back here. We have this basic search cocktail API, and this could be done with vanilla JavaScript, or you could build it with React. But basically what this does is a very simple application, and it basically allows you to look up drinks from this application. So if I wanted to see a White Russian, as I start typing, it's going to show me all the suggestions. If I so I have White Russian, I could click get more, and I could see all the ingredients and the instructions how to make it, and I could go back. So this is like a very simple example of working with API. You could use React, you could use JavaScript, but this would be like the second project that you would build. And if you wanted to make something a little bit more advanced, you can, but at the most bare minimum is having a way where you're able to at least call an API and get some data back. A more, you know, I'm in the wrong place. Let me go home here. Another application that you have, and James actually here had a great example, which is basically his version of his next project where he's practicing basically making a call to an API using JavaScript. And if I hit live demo, you know, you could paste an IP address. I'm just going to copy this one just to kind of show you. And it's basically going to find that IP address and show you where it's at. So this is a great way to look up location by IP address. I think this is kind of cool application. Another example would be here. Let me go back here. Here's something I did, COVID tracker, live demo. And again, this looks complex because I'm using a bunch of like map library to make it look cooler. But the general idea, it's still basically just gets data from an API using React application and then renders that data from that API. And you could basically check COVID cases by country. And very simple application. It looks much cooler, but I used maps library for here, and then I used a graph library here. So the general idea is basically being able to connect to an API and get the data. And kind of talking about, you know, learning, that's the second path. Once you learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and Sass, the next thing I would talk about is learn how to work with other APIs that already exist, like the examples I just showed you, and start really focusing on learning React. Now, this is something I chose. I chose to focus on styled components when building React application, and I do this out of personal kind of preference, because once you create a style component, you encapsulate all the styling inside that component. So if I want to reuse it in another application, all I have to do is copy and paste it. And I recommend taking a look and learning Bootstrap. And I'm not saying that you guys have to build every project with Bootstrap, but you guys should be familiar with this concept of CSS frameworks that you could use. There's Bootstrap, there's Tailwind, there's a bunch of other ones. And then the other thing that I recommend for a lot of people is using Strapi. Strapi is basically a cool way for you guys to create an API that you could easily use to set up a pretty great and cool application. For instance, Dev Hunt project, I didn't write the API myself from scratch. I used Strapi, and you could find more about Strapi going to strapi.io. And it basically, strapi.io. I keep pressing tab to autocorrect, but that's not how it works in your browser apparently. But you could click get started. And so Strapi basically allows you to create a very easy API that you could use for your front-end applications. And what I would say to you guys, once you understand HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Sass, how to work with API, you understand React, so you could use CSS modules, star components, or you could just use vanilla CSS. That's fine. Learn Bootstrap and use something like Strapi. You could pretty much build a lot of cool projects already just with the first two rows here. And in my personal growth, what I decided to do is to, you know, focus more on JavaScript technology. So you could see I'm going to continue to improve on Next.js. I'm going to continue to learn TypeScript. I'm jumping into Node.js. I'm using GraphQL. I'm using Postgres as my database. And this is something that I want to continue to get better. And my goal for 2022, at least for myself, is to focus more on being able to do test-driven development with Jest and using Cypress to test, you know, front-end UI applications, stuff like that. So I'm still learning about all this stuff, but the general idea, like, you need to have a plan. And I know I was kind of like all over the place here, but, you know, I just wanted to kind of show you that I'm not blindly learning technologies. I have something, and it's a limited number of things that I'm learning, and it already is a lot of things, as you could see based on this outline. You should make something like this for yourself. And when you're starting out, you know, at the most bare minimum, this is something that I would kind of recommend the flow of things if you are a complete beginner. And so I made this other outline. Let me zoom it in here a little bit, and let me look at the comments here before we kind of continue chatting here. And I heard about from Tech Rally's Discord. You know, I've been so bad on Discord, like I haven't even been on my Discord yet. I've just been so busy with work. Yeah, I haven't even been on Tech Rally's Discord. I have no idea what's going on. Tech Pass 30, what's up? Happy New Year. Happy to you, my New Year to you, my brother. Next is awesome. Next is awesome. And there's like, once you learn the basics of React, then transitioning and building your next project with Next.js, 100% recommended. And that's what I would say you guys should do. Yep. And yes, we are live. Henry's here saying, never mind. I'm missing the context, but it's okay. So what I would say, if you guys just starting out and you're looking to kind of like create like a little flow chart like this, again, I just did this in like 5 minutes here. And the idea is that you want to have some sort of roadmap, and it doesn't have to be set in stone, but you do have to keep yourself committed to technologies that you want to learn. And so here, as you could see, if you're a complete beginner, you got to start with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And again, this is in reference to web development. If you want to do something else, like like Web 3.0, and I'm not saying there's no jobs. There are jobs. There's plenty of jobs for Web 3.0. The only reason I'm not doing anything with blockchains right now is because there's just so much stuff to learn. I just want to focus on web development right now, but definitely there will be opportunities there, and you could always pivot and learn something else. But the goal for you guys is to decide what you guys want to use to break into the field. Like when you're looking to get hired, do you want to break into the field via web development? Do you want to break into the field doing blockchain stuff and crypto, which I know nothing about? Do you want to break into field, doing theming for WordPress? Like whatever it is, you guys have to decide what it is. So I decided that I was going to be a React developer, and that's what I was going to focus on. And to answer the question, all these technologies. So let me kind of go back and kind of show you here, because it is overwhelming. So basically, no, I don't know all of the technologies. I did use them though at some extent. So this is kind of, I'll show you what I know and feel like I'm pretty experienced in terms of I can use it. And if I can't do something from scratch, I know enough about that technology to be able to look it up in Google and figure it out. So I've used HTML, and I'm not sharing my screen here like an idiot. So I used HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and Sass. Fairly comfortable with working with APIs, fairly comfortable with working with both REST APIs and GraphQL APIs, which is this logo here. React, very comfortable with React. Obviously, there's a ton of advanced React that I still have to learn and do, but style components, fairly comfortable in. Bootstrap, just Google the stuff that you need to do, but I just use it in my current work project and my personal project. This is Strappy. Strappy I'm fairly comfortable with because I use it all the time. Next.js, I'm not as comfortable with as basic React, but I am comfortable enough with React that whatever I don't know about Next.js, which is like not that much in terms of like the basics, like I could easily figure out. I do have a couple of Next.js projects that I built. CSS modules, very comfortable with. Tailwind, I know what it is. I like it. I don't like using it sometimes, or there's a particular use case that I like it. Keystone.js here, I know what it is. It's another competitor to something like Strappy. Basically allows you to create a API. Basically, it's a content management system. Keystone.js, not that comfortable with it, but this is something I put here because I want to learn more about it. So that I don't know too much about. TypeScript, I'm still learning, and probably like when it comes to TypeScript, I have a long way to go. The good news is that when you start learning TypeScript, you could just work with it on as you needed basis, meaning you could take your React application and you could start converting it to TypeScript one file at a time. And that's a good way for you to continue to learn TypeScript without trying to feel like you have to master it right away. But TypeScript, 100%. If you guys doing React and JavaScript, TypeScript is basically here to stay. And if you want to add value, once you know JavaScript, TypeScript, 100% you guys should learn. And this is Node.js. I am comfortable with it from the standpoint of if I see an API that somebody else created, I could kind of understand what they're doing. If I have to make my own API, that would require me to look a lot of stuff up. So when it comes to Node, if there's existing code base, I could follow the logic and understand what the code is doing. For me to write a Node.js application from scratch would be something that I'm not fully comfortable doing, and something that I would have to kind of do a lot of Googling and a lot of documentation reading. And this applies to SQLize, and I'm actually in the process of transitioning to full stack development. All of my backend development has been with using Strapi, which is based on Node.js. So you learn the concept of controllers, models, services, policies, and you're able to write custom code in the context of Strapi. But Node, this is something where I'm at right now. This is what I'm learning. So Node, SQLize is a way for you to connect to, I guess it's an ORM, which allows you to make it easier to work with PostgreSQL when creating a Node application. And so this fourth row here is stuff that I'm learning now. The only thing I would say, GraphQL from a front-end standpoint using Apollo client, I got pretty good understanding. When it comes to writing back-end application with GraphQL, that's something that I am still currently learning. So all this stuff in this row here is work in progress. And then when it comes to like the fifth row, I mean, Apollo I'm very comfortable with, Apollo client, Apollo server, but Cypress, Jest, test-driven development, all new to me. Express, obviously it allows you to build your node-based server just much faster when you use Express. So Express I'm kind of familiar, but only in context of how it applies to Node. And since my Node understanding is limited, that's where I'm at. So the last two rows here is basically what I'm focusing on for 2022. I know that's like a long-winded way to answer your question, but I wanted to take the time to show you that I'm not an expert of all this stuff. And coming back to this example, what I would say here, guys, when you're looking to learn, when you're looking to start studying, is don't rush yourself. And so if you're a complete beginner, what I would say is focus on HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Once you get here, you don't even have to learn Sass. CSS is fine. Once you get through these three items, you could build a basic project, like this one. And the example I gave you guys is a basic, simple website. And here's a live demo. You guys should be able to build simple websites like this with basic JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. And obviously they should be responsive. And this is something that you guys are going to get comfortable with through practice. And this is why I tell you, force yourself to build projects. Like going back to this node here, once you do one HTML, CSS course, once you do one JavaScript course, you have the knowledge to start building your first project here. So stop doing tutorials, build your first project. Your second project, right? Learn React, learn some Sass, learn a little bit about Bootstrap. But basically your second project should be a simple project where you either using vanilla JavaScript or React and doing something basic where you're starting to learn how to work with an API. So your project number 2 could be a simple API project, which could be, and this is from a John Smilga course. Literally, I built it based on his course here. I'll show you a live demo like I showed before, where you're basically, this could be vanilla JavaScript, this could be React, but you're not getting data statically, but you're working with an API. So this API retrieves different recipe of drinks. So if I were to Google Bloody Mary, right? And my internet's slow, so things are loading slow, but that's okay. And maybe the picture's missing here too. But regardless, it'll able to load the recipe. And this would be like a basic example of starting to understand how to work with APIs and starting to introduce yourself to React. So looking on this roadmap here, I would say that once you understand how to work with APIs a little bit, you understand basics of React, you could start building your project number 2. And you should not, like obviously I just showed you a project from John Smilga's course. What I would say is that do that project with John Smilga's course, but then create your own project that you built from scratch. You should constantly force yourself to build projects from scratch. And the example of that is this COVID tracker that kind of finished, not really, but you get the gist and idea here. So as you could see here, this is still a very basic project. You're not writing any data to backend, but you're just consuming an API that allows you to get data on COVID cases based on countries. And so this is a great example for project number 2. And then what I would say, continue to improve your knowledge of React. You know, continue to understand, learn a CMS. Like, let me do this here. And the reason why I say learn a CMS, which is a content management system, because sometimes you don't want to build an API from scratch, right? We just want to have something that will allow us to have a simple API that we could use to build our applications. And by learning a CMS, we don't have to start learning, you know, backend or what have you, like NodeJS or Python or even C#. You could just use a CMS to power front an application. A good example of this is actually this Dev Hunt community project. And again, this is not done, this is work in progress, but this application is being powered by Strapi CMS. So instead of spending time trying to kind of kill myself by creating the authentication, creating all this other stuff from scratch, like sending emails and what have you, I'm just using the power of Strapi. You can go to strapi.io, read more about it. And this allows me to build more complex applications. For instance, this application, you know, allows me to do full CRUD. Like, for instance, I could say, hi, I could add comments here, right? I could go to dashboard. Again, this has to be redone, but I could add new projects. I could post new posts. I could do all this other functionality without having to create my own backend from scratch. And don't get me wrong, once I finish this project, and this will be my 3rd project, where you basically create a CRUD application with, you know, React using like a CMS like Strapi, where you're able to create, read, update, and delete data. That should be your project 3. You should have some sort of authentication. For instance, if I log out, I go to, let's see, look, I can't access bugs, I can't access developer. If I want to comment, right? If I want to put a comment, I have to log in. So you have to be familiar with authentication, and this is something that you don't have to do yourself. You could use the power of Strapi, right? And now I have working authentication that I use. So I know the concept, right? I know this idea of private fields. Now I could see developers, I could see bugs because I am authenticated user, I'm logged in, and we could create, read, update, I could delete stuff. Some of this functionality still needs to be implemented, but you guys get the gist. Your 3rd project should be what I call your cornerstone project, which basically showcases your ability to, and will be this 3rd project, to create a front end with React where you're able to do full CRUD functionality, show that you understand authentication, and making sure that you're saving data to your database. And I'm using PostgreSQL, and the reason for that is because that's the most common database that is professionally used. And once you, I'm kind of going some in-between steps, very minor, but just giving you the general idea. Unless you build 3 projects, there's no reason for you to get into testing. There's no reason for you to learn algorithms and data structures, or even learn how to work with databases in a more advanced level, because you need to build 3 projects that you could start to put in your portfolio so you could start looking for jobs. So let me take a look at the comments. I hope it's making sense to you guys what I'm talking about. And listen, ask questions. Let me know where you guys want to take this conversation, because I don't want to just give you my opinions. But, could be totally wrong. They're not wrong. I think they were right for me, because that's exactly what I did to get hired and get a job and continue working. And so the stuff that I show you, it's super important. And again, let me kind of stress this enough. The reason why I'm working, and if you want to see me build this application, it's obviously not done, but I decided that the biggest mistake and the biggest issues a lot of people have when learning to code is that they get stuck in tutorial hell and they don't do enough personal projects. So I wanted to build this platform for you guys to be able to, and I see a lot of good questions from Henry. I'll jump in and answer them in just a moment. But the basic idea is that I want you guys to be able to share projects, regardless if they're simple or complex. You'll be able to come in here. You'll be able to share your project. Your project will have this section where you're able to see the live demo. My internet's slow, so I apologize for that, but whatever. This is another HTML and CSS JavaScript website that I did, but it will allow you to share your projects, and more importantly, it will allow people to give feedback like, hey, great project. And more importantly, this section here, people will be able to test your project outside, like they'll be able to upload, but they could also like add, you know, bugs or request features, or if they find a bug, they could add a bug and you'll be able to test the application for you. And then I didn't implement this, but eventually what I want to do is you guys who are logged into this website who are not only sharing your projects, commenting, and doing all this other great stuff, but you'll be able to see all the bugs that are available on this website. And to practice coding, instead of doing a tutorial and another tutorial, being stuck in tutorial hell, not only can you work on your personal projects here, and if you get stuck here, you could ask for help literally on this website, or other people will see the projects you work on. They see that you might have a bug, and I'll make a request button here. They could actually request to help you. And so the whole idea, and again, this is still work in progress, a lot of it, the whole point of this website is to create a platform where people are sharing their projects and you could actively help others or each other to answer questions or to do bug bounties on projects that are already somebody else is working. And you could even assign bugs to your friends to help you out. And then I'm going to make a general question section where people could ask programming questions and we could all help each other out. And the goal eventually is to encourage you guys to constantly build your own stuff. So let me go, because Henry has a lot of amazing questions. So let me go and answer Henry's question. And you guys should all take kind of Henry's lead here and ask some more questions, because why not? It's New Year. I don't want to just randomly talk about nonsense or stuff that I want to talk about. I want to talk about the things that you want to talk about. So don't be shy, ask questions. So what stage were you in JS when you thought it was the right time to learn React? People say master JS before you switch. Actually, that's a great question, and you should definitely not master JS because you can't master JS. Kyle Simpson, who wrote the book series You Don't Know JS, he's not even a master of JavaScript. He knows a lot of JavaScript, but he's not a master. So you just need to do and learn basics of JavaScript where you understand the basics of the language. Then you have to be comfortable working with functions, working with objects, working with arrays, looping through arrays, mapping through arrays, like the simple stuff. And then you should kind of be familiar with callback. What's a callback? What's a promise? What async is in JavaScript. Again, on the most basic level. And then you should jump into React. Definitely don't wait. I spent a lot of time trying to master JavaScript before jumping to React, and I literally wasted time. I could have been hired much sooner if I started learning React first. So if you basically, let's say you went, I'll show you here. Let's say you went on Udemy and they have New Year's sale, fantastic. And let's say you do one JavaScript course, and I'll show you one of my favorite courses here. I can't spell JavaScript, obviously. My favorite course for JavaScript is John Smilga's course. It's I'll show you, it's this one, JavaScript tutorial project. And so JavaScript tutorial and project course. The reason why I like this is because it not only teaches you everything you need to know about JavaScript to be able to get started with React, but there's plenty of projects that you build alongside with John. It's almost like, how long is this course? It's like 40 freaking hours. It's pretty long. 40 hours of material. So once you complete one course like this, and it doesn't have to be John Smilga's course, I'll just use an example. You're ready to start learning React. So what I would say is what I said before. It's learn and take one HTML CSS course. That's it. take one JavaScript course, that's it, build a basic HTML and CSS JavaScript project, and then jump into learning React, you know, and then start building projects with React, because you will never master everything. And so what you need to do is just start forcing yourself to kind of push your progress forward. And whenever I learn React, and let's say I'm stuck in React because there's something about JavaScript doesn't make sense to me, guess what? You could always take a few steps back and learn that concept in JavaScript to help you get to where you're going. And that's what I recommend. So what I would say is, you know, you should push yourself to learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and React, you know, the first 3 to 6 months of your studying. And that would be the most important part. So definitely don't think of mastering stuff. And am I German? I'm not German. I'm actually Russian. I mean, when I say Russian, I came to America when I was 10 years old. So I'm practically American, but I still speak Russian. I have a lot of family in Russia. So I came to US when I was 10. And then would you call yourself a senior dev? No, I would say I'm kind of closer to mid-level developer right now. And at least that's how I still feel. Like some people say I'm like definitely like mid-level, but probably to like closer to the beginning of mid-level, not closer to senior. So that's kind of where I'm at. And then in terms of building projects, so the 3 projects I recommend, and the first one is basically build a simple HTML, CSS, and JavaScript website like I showed earlier, because that will showcase that you at least know the basics. The next thing you do is you build the second simple project, which was kind of like the React application here that I built. Again, this looks more complex, but this is just, it looks fancy. But all it does, it's a React application that looks up COVID or pandemic. I probably shouldn't say COVID. Oh my God, COVID, because YouTube hates it when people talk about it. The pandemic that shall not be named, statistics based on country. So it's able to basically look up the statistic of the pandemic for the country from the COVID API. You could use a bunch of APIs. I'll show you another one, but a simple project here. Another API project I had is, I don't have it here. Let me go to my Netlify. I should probably post it here. Netlify. But basically for your second project, you're just looking to get a basic application where you introduce working with APIs, and mostly what you're doing is you're basically getting data from an API, and you're displaying on the screen. Another very common one, and you could check it out on, you know, where's the, what do I got a sites on YouTube. Just find like GitHub API, React, or whatever. There's a bunch of tutorials, but here's one, another example. So your second project should be something where you're getting data from an API and you're displaying it, and maybe you're doing some sort of like filtering or some functionality. Like here we have, you know, we filter by HTML. It'll pull all the popular repos for that language. If you see CSS, it'll pull, and basically just does basic filtering, nothing too crazy, from pulling data from an API, and you're just displaying the data. So that'll be like a good second project. And then your third project, that's going to be your massive project. And your third project is kind of like what I'm trying to build. Hold on a second. I probably closed it already. Community. Community one project. Yep, here it is. It shows up on Google, interestingly. And your third project would be your cornerstone project. That's something where you're looking to implement authentication. You're looking to implement, you know, full CRUD functionality. You're not only are you displaying data, but you're able to also, you know, post data. So you basically want to create an application where you're working with an API, you're working with and you don't have to even create your own backend. That's why I use Strapi, but you're working with a database like MongoDB, and you're doing full CRUD application, which is create, read, update, and delete. And again, I'm kind of going fairly quickly over that stuff, but that's what I would recommend for building your third project. And I'll kind of show you like the checklist that I followed. And there's a bunch of people that I coached a little bit in terms of getting hired, and they kind of followed basically same kind of process. And I had the checklist. I forgot where I moved it, because who knows anything. Resources, getting hired. I think I moved it to getting hired. So basically this is the process that I follow. And the basics: you want to set up a GitHub account, you want to set up a LinkedIn account, you want to set up a basic portfolio site. Here's the example of mine. I just bought a template and I used it, right? You want to set up, and again, I didn't build this myself. This is kind of like my resume site. I just set it up. You want to have a LinkedIn that you could start, building your social network in terms of or social connections with other developers and stuff. And then you want to make sure that you're active on your GitHub, right? And you're constantly doing committing code. And the point is, not everybody's gonna check every commit that you put. The point here is that you have a history of the stuff that you're developing and you're coding on almost daily basis. That kind of showcases to anybody who's looking to hire you that you're in it. You're not just, you don't have an empty GitHub like I had in 2015, right? It doesn't look like this. You want to be making some sort of progress. And this stuff, you don't need, that's just the basics to be able to get yourself out there. And in terms of projects, basically what I just explained, I didn't say what you should learn here. It's up to you guys to decide. But in my context, it was HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and React, and working with APIs. And these are the 3 projects I recommend. Basics HTML and CSS project with JavaScript. And I showed an example here. Basic React with API get method, and then your cornerstone project, which includes authentication and CRUD. Once you're done with those 3 projects, you're ready to start prepping for interviews. That's when you start doing company interview research, researching what companies in your area are hiring, what are their interview process, then prepping for those interviews, making sure you have a good resume and you improve it in the best possible way. And you start working on mock interview prep, which may include studying some data structures, algorithms, or doing some, projects take home. And then you focus on networking. And if you want, as a bonus, you could set up a blog and share articles or videos you talking about what you learned as a developer. I'm not doing this too much, but I have Coding After 30 blog, and I'll show you an example. I'm gonna start doing more here because it's a great way to market yourself. Because I have the YouTube channel, I haven't been focusing on this as much. But if you see this, and my internet's super slow, so I apologize for that. I'm in the woods right now. But here's an example where I, created a simple article, and then I shared this article on LinkedIn, basically kind of showcasing what I've learned. I have a CodePen example in terms of building a specific component, and sharing stuff like this, just kind of helps you stand out on LinkedIn, because you're not just sharing, cat photos, but you're actually doing something that is relative to what you want to do, which is become a developer. And so let's see here. And for hosting, I'm using, for the current projects that I have, I use Netlify, and then for my backend for Strapi, I use Heroku. But there's a bunch of other solutions. And saying, probably talked about John Smilga course. Yep. How long have I been coding for? So I've started coding on and off when I was maybe in my early 30s, but I was so lazy. I wasn't consistent. I spun my wheels. I kind of made excuses for myself. I didn't commit to just learning one language. I tried to learn a bunch of stuff. And so I kind of meandered around from 32 to 36, not really doing anything. At 36, I started to focus on learning to code a little bit more seriously, really got committed. 37, 38, really was focused on it, and was able to get my first job at 39. Just to put that into perspective, I'm about to turn 42. My God, that doesn't even sound good. And then the link for Coding After 30 website, the one that I currently have on the screen, that's codingafter30.com. Yeah, I'm 42 now. Well, I'm going to be 42. I'm 41 right now, Henry. But I'm going to be turning 42. And then my website is codingafter30.com. I don't do too much on it. I should. I'm gonna, for New Year, start doing more and more. And so, yeah, and I just wanted to kind of like, you know, share my progress here on YouTube to kind of showcase that the secret to this is keeping consistency, having a path that you define yourself, and it doesn't have to be much. Like, for instance, I showed you my screen here, making a simple outline like this, or I even made like a visual one like this. And again, I'm not saying that you have to start with all of these. You could start with the first row and the second row and just focus on that for the first year, and you'll get hired for sure. It just takes time, right? I didn't build this overnight, and this is like the reason why I have this YouTube channel, is because I want to share the honest path to learning to code. Some people might have done it sooner. Some people are, you know, never done it because they've never kind of figured out like the steps that are necessary, because they keep watching another YouTube video or try to do another tutorial that they don't finish. But the basic outline is for you guys to get committed, set a plan of tech you're gonna learn, and stick to that. And so if you have, like, for instance, I have over 400 Udemy courses, and I probably only completed like 7 of them. A lot of wasted money, Jesus Christ. But the point is, you don't need bajillion courses. You could get one HTML, CSS course, one JavaScript, one React course, spend all your time just going over those courses, and then build those 3 projects that I talked about, set up your resume, set up your LinkedIn, set up your GitHub, and start interviewing. And you guys are going to get there. And I've had helped 2 different people, because I thought maybe I got lucky that I got hired. But I kind of gave some of my advice to 2 other people that got hired. One of them just got hired recently. And I'm not saying that my advice was what did it. They still did the work. They still went out of their way and worked hard to achieve their goals. But what they had is they had an outline of like, okay, I'm not going to worry about everything. I'm just going to focus on very specific things that I have to do. And hey, Luke, good to see you. Happy New Year, Mr. Paul. Well, Luke, Happy New Year to you. I hope you had a good New Year's with your family. Hope everybody's doing great. And so that's the whole reason basically for this YouTube channel, just to kind of show my progress. And if you watch some of my older videos, like, I probably had no idea what I'm talking about. And now you watch some of my newer videos, I still don't know what I'm talking about, but I think I'm like getting better, and somehow I'm able to code more and build projects. But it all takes time. It's not something you build or happens overnight. And so the reason why I do these live streams is to kind of tell you guys, like, look, if you're looking to get into it, you're learning, want to get into web development, you want to learn to code, it is possible. But you have to understand that trying to do everything at once is not the right way. There are certain steps. Like, for instance, when you're learning to ride a bike, like, it's much easier to start with training wheels, and then once you're able to ride the bike with training wheels, take the training wheels off. And so that's the way to do it. So, Henry, am I based in LA? No, I'm actually in Austin, Texas, but currently I am visiting my family in Connecticut. So, but I'm in the US, America-based, developer. And so, yeah, and so that's why I share all the stuff I talk about, all I do. Like, you obviously don't have to listen to me, but if you can take away one thing, and one thing that I would say is to make sure that you're always forcing yourself to build stuff from scratch. And that's the hardest thing to do. It took me forever to get there. And that's why on Tuesday nights, I do my Tuesday night live coding stream, which is basically a lot of failures, a lot of headaches, a lot of mistakes. But I'm not afraid to showcase the difficulties of coding, because I don't want you guys to get the wrong idea where, it's like I sit down, or any developer sit down, and they just perfectly code something. You learn through trial and error. And a lot of times there's stuff I don't know, and there's stuff I have to look up, like, most of the time. And the reason why I show all this stuff is because I want you guys to have the realistic expectation that it's not as easy as people on YouTube make it out to be. And the more you listen to people on YouTube, like, I'm not saying don't listen to me, like you don't have to, but the more time you spend coding and building your own projects, the more you troubleshoot your projects, the more you guys focus on development rather than getting caught up in opinions on YouTube, even my own, like the faster you guys are going to make progress. And so for me, like, I don't care about YouTube in the standpoint, oh, let me get as many views as I can and let me make that YouTube money, because it's nothing. My goal is to become the best developer I can, and also to help those who are legitimately trying to switch careers or learn to code, that I give you my most honest experience based on what happened to me. So that way you're not spinning your wheels and you're not living in the hype, but you're living in reality and doing the work that you have to do. The truth is, it's really hard. There's a lot to learn, and if you're don't have a plan, it's going to be really hard to get to the goal that you want to go. And so everybody that I talked to that got hired, they have all built their own projects rather than using something that they saw in a tutorial. And that's one thing that I see, is that the more you build stuff on your own, the faster you learn. And then Henry has a question. What about learning Vue? Heard it was one of the most beginner-friendly frameworks. The point is, it may be beginner-friendly, and I would argue that, to me, like React, I think is not that difficult. I mean, everything is like, once you start doing it and once you start learning it, like, things will get less difficult. But what I would say in terms of Vue, look in your area for jobs that are available. So in my area, there's a bajillion React jobs. And so that's why I'm only sticking to React, because if I did Vue, I would not have that much opportunity for a job. So Vue could be cool. It could be beginner friendly, but it's not something I recommend. I recommend going for the tech that people are hiring for. So in my area, JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and React, 100%. And in terms of databases, we're not using MongoDB. Everybody in all the companies I worked for, they're using PostgreSQL. So that's the database I'm learning. So basically, do a Google search in your area for what tech is most commonly hireable for, like React, whatever it is, and then make your outline based on that. So in my area, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Sass, and React is a must, and that's why I focus on those technologies, and that's why you don't see Vue anywhere on my list here. Vue is just not here. Why? Because I don't care for learning for Vue, not because maybe it's even better than React. But the point is, there's not that many jobs compared to React. And so I'm not going to focus learning something that is not going to get me a job. So I'm not trying to learn technologies. And some of these might not be right for you as well, like on this list. You have to make your own list. But I'm not learning technologies because they're cool and because another YouTuber told me. I'm learning these technologies because this is something that's popular in my area. And that's why I am working on these specific technologies, or I'm using them at work, and that's why I want to get better at them. So let's see here. Hologram Nunchuk says, how long did it take you to get good at problem solving? I was struggling to implement an image carousel, but when I read the code solution, I understood it. Problem solving from scratch is my struggle. That's still a struggle for me. I still run into issues solving stuff, and sometimes some things take me a week to figure out, or sometimes 2 weeks. It's not like even a day. And so the best way to get better at problem solving is running into problems. So the best way to get into like learning to solve problems is running into problems. And how do you run into problems? You try to build stuff yourself from scratch. And that's what I would tell people, is start learning to build stuff from scratch. You're going to run into problems, and guess what? Every time you look up the solution, every time you Google something, every time you read the docs, every time you wrestle with a problem, you're practicing that most important skill, problem solving. And it literally just comes from solving problems. Another great place for beginners, I wouldn't start with LeetCode or HackerRank right away, but using Code Wars is another great one. Learning how to solve, JavaScript specific problems. But some of the problems you might run into might not even be like code related. They might be like workflow related. Like, for instance, like what should happen when you create a user on your back end? What kind of type of user they are, where should they have access, how should they be stored in a database? It's even about those things is think about those things as well. And all that comes from trying to build stuff on your own, failing, and learning based on your experience. And that's why I tell people, stop doing tutorials. If you already finished 3 to 5 tutorials, you're golden. Get off the tutorials and start building stuff. Until you have 3 projects, there's no reason for you to try to go and study tutorials. You'll be better served getting stuck, doing a bunch of Googling, learning how to get unstuck, learning the solution, implementing in your own personal project that you could actually showcase to your potential employers on your resume. And that's what I would recommend for sure. But yeah, I still think I suck at problem solving. And Henry says, yeah, 600 jobs in React in my area and 60 for Vue. Yeah, and so if you think about it, in my opinion, like, I would go for React. And somebody will say, well, there's only 60 jobs in Vue and it's a smaller pool and maybe it's like a niche thing and maybe you get hired. For me, like I much rather still go for the most popular thing, which is React. And for me, like, that was the case that helped me get hired, and that's what I would suggest doing. By the way, I just want to say thank you to all of you guys for watching. Again, I'm some dude on the internet who somehow became a developer late in his life. A lot of people, like, you know, watch my channel and they're like, oh, like, this guy must be smart. Like, I'm not smart. You know, I'm hardworking. I wouldn't say that I'm like more smart than anybody else. And a lot of people, like, you know, they're like, oh, but Paul, whatever, must have. I did martial arts before I became a developer. I was mixed martial arts and Brazilian jiu-jitsu instructor. So, you know, for me, like, if I could do it, you guys could do it. And that's not even a joke. Like I switched from like the most and practical career, which was doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu, into web development. And like, again, I'm not saying it because it's like, oh, like, look at me. I'm just saying, like, it's literally going from a field that has nothing to do with coding and learning to code, you know what I mean, and making that transition. And so, you know, like, I'm not saying like, you know, like, I'm special. I'm not. That's the whole point. I'm saying I'm not special. Like, what I'm saying is, like, if you want it bad enough and you want to make that decision to switch, you could do it, like, for sure. And then Vinyl Guy says, Happy New Year, everyone. Yeah, Happy New Year to everybody. Happy New Year to you, Vinyl Guy. And yeah, I was, before I went on this side rant, I wanted to say thank you to all of you guys who've been supporting my YouTube channel and allowing me to be part of your community. I really appreciate it. It is super awesome, you know, the fact how awesome this community is. And I'm really, you know, honored the fact that I am able to chat with you guys and have you guys allow me to be part of your community and join me on Saturdays for these live streams. Woody says, hey Paul, have you heard of Cap Rover Heroku alternative? Pretty cool alternative for deploying your apps for low cost. Not yet. I haven't checked them out yet at all. So thanks for the recommendation. I will definitely look into it because I'm always looking for other alternatives. For now, I am doing Netlify and Heroku just because it's something I'm familiar with, but, you know, definitely good to find other alternatives where maybe you have, you know, like, just better pricing plan or like what have you. Yeah, but yeah, it's funny to me though, like, whenever I hear people, like, a lot of times people are like, oh, I can't do this, I can't become a web developer, you just don't know where I'm coming from. And I'm saying, like, I totally get it, that there's so many challenges that everybody faces. But with that being said, is that you literally, like, hey, how bad do I want it? Am I willing to do the work that is required to get to where I'm going and get there? You know what I'm saying? That's basically, you know, kind of what you got to do. And I was actually going to show you a video. Let me like mute because this has music that basically, I don't know why I don't even have a audio control in this thing. It's kind of frustrating, but I want to show you like where I came from. This is this is where I came from. Let me mute my system audio so I don't get demonetized because this has a song that's not. But this is used to be me. This is used to be me training. It's still too loud. Godly. Let me turn the sound off here. But anyway, I'm just wanted to share with you guys the video. Like, this was me, like, before coding. This is what I used to do. Like, just some dude doing martial arts. Like, it was fun. It was fun. I don't regret it. But the thing that I'm trying to say is that, I was getting older. My body was getting beat up. I never foreseen, like, I'm an idiot. I never foreseen, like, COVID happening. If I never decided to switch careers and switch to coding, I would have been out of business. You know what I'm saying? Because there's a period for like a year and a half where all the fitness businesses were closed down and shut down. So I would have went out of business. And so to me, I was kind of happy that I was able to switch into a different career, like web development, that I'm able to work remotely. And this is my background. Like, it's not like I had some sort of secret that allowed me to learn things fast. I actually learned things super slow. And that's why I keep telling people that learning web development takes a lot of work and it's hard. And so if you guys like wondering, like, I have some special skill, yeah, none of that skill was in web development. I just wanted to share that with you guys so you guys understand that, I'm just like a regular dude who worked in a completely different field, and then one day had the crazy idea of being like, let me learn how to code so I could switch careers into something that will help me work remotely, not beat myself up. And again, I don't show you that video to be like, oh, look, whatever. I just show you that video that everybody comes from different walks of life, and we basically make like our journey be what we want it to be. And so if you're kind of feeling down, you're like, I don't know if I could do it, you can do it. It just requires commitment. It requires staying consistent. It requires having a plan, not trying to learn everything under the sun. And this, hopefully, what I try to achieve with the channel is to give guys like the true feedback of my experience and what has helped and what has not helped. And so with that being said, let's do like a few more questions if you guys have them. I know we've been streaming for an hour already, and I could tell my voice is going. So let's do some questions. Feel free. Don't be shy. Ask questions about anything. And by the way, I stream on Saturdays, 7 p.m. Central Time, and then Tuesday, 7 p.m. Central Time. Tuesday stream is kind of cool because that's where I do all about coding. That's where we're building that community one project that I showed you guys. So if you want me struggle and bang my head against the wall and see me build this community project that we have here, you guys more than welcome to join me on Tuesday night stream. Half the time actually all the time I fail and make mistakes, so it's hilarious from that standpoint. But this is the project that we're building, so that's every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Central Time. Also, amazing channel here besides Coding After 30 is Coding Addict, and he's the guy John Smilga, who does interesting. Who does this guy right here, Coding Addict, who has those Udemy courses that I recommend. He's really awesome. I love his courses. But the only reason, besides his channel is amazing, he has a lot of great videos here. But another awesome kind of reason why I wanted to recommend this channel, great, we have ads here, fantastic, because every Monday, 8 p.m. Actually, next week, I'm sorry, we're actually just switching our times. So we're switching our times to Friday. I believe it's going to be, we're still going to announce time, but on Fridays, we used to do Mondays, but we do Power Hour live stream, which is also awesome. So you can catch me there. But with that being said, let's open it to some questions and kind of see like if you guys have any questions, or I'm just saying mumbo jumbo like crazy. But anyway, Taz here says, how about Linode and DigitalOcean? I know a lot of people that use Linode and DigitalOcean. I just never had a need to use Linode and DigitalOcean, but I know they're both really great solutions. And so what I think what I'm going to do when I finish my Dev Hunt project that I'm building on the Tuesday night stream that is currently deployed on Heroku and Netlify, maybe a cool practice would be to deploy it on Linode or DigitalOcean. So I like that idea. That'll be really cool. And then Walter says here, Paul, how did you approach recruiters regarding the background career change? And so what I did is that I tried to talk about my experience from the past, and people like, well, let's see, like, what experience can you even show from the fact that you taught martial arts? And at that time, it was like I owned my own school, I ran my own business. So I tried to kind of say, like, number one, because I operated my own business, I knew the idea that the most important part about business is creating what the customers want. So I understand this idea between me as someone who delivers a service. At the end of the day, my boss is the customer, you know. So I kind of use that as like a strength. So I understood that as a developer, even though I'm developing based on what I'm being told to do, I understand that the end product is something that a customer is going to use. So I kind of understand why we do certain things. So that's one example. The second example, I would say that because I worked with a lot of people, and because I worked and sold, like in my personal example, I sold my own service, which was martial art lessons. I got very comfortable talking to different people and understanding how to handle objections, which helps me be good as a team player on a team, because I'm able to see things from many different perspectives when listening to people, like, you know, stuff like that. And so that's kind of what I basically, short answer is I looked at my experience and I tried to figure out what skills, they might not be coding skills, but what skills, and a lot of them became like people skills and interpersonal skills and soft skills that I could talk about that I know are going to be helpful for me getting a new job. And then another one, this is actually example that somebody gave me a question on the interview. It's not an example, it actually happened. I know, like, it's a good example for me to share with you guys right now. But I was doing an interview and somebody said to me, is like, well, what is one of your weaknesses that you have as a developer? And that's why I had an opportunity to talk about my past experience and turn it to a positive, where I said, like, one of the weaknesses is that I decided to switch careers late into my life and becoming a web developer, programmer, whatever you want to say. And because of that, I spend more time learning at home, making sure that I'm constantly staying up to date with what I need to be productive at work, something like that. So basically, practice kind of doing some role playing with questions where someone can ask you about your career, and try to come up with some stories that you could tell, and they should be real, of course, at the interview, that point you how, like, yeah, it was a negative, but here's the positive that I got from it. I hope that was kind of example for you, Walter. I hope it makes sense. So no plans to learn Docker right now. And again, like, the only reason I would learn Docker if I wanted to go into DevOps. And so that's not my goal right now. I don't want to go into DevOps. I much rather be a developer who's focused more on coding and creating the software, creating the program. But I know that being, you know, and going to DevOps, that could be one, you know, potential avenue to pursue in terms of employment. But to me, like, DevOps and programmers are two different things. And so where I work, we have DevOps guys, so they would handle all the Docker implementation and, you know, and deploy the code. I don't have to worry about it. So that's kind of my opinion. So no, I will not learn Docker unless it's for like personal interest. But for now, I have no reason of learning it. And Ken says, Happy New Year, Paul. Ken, Happy New Year to you. I hope you and your family are doing great. It's been a while. Great to see you here. And I hope you're making progress on your learning journey. It's been a while. Let me know how you're doing. And Jason says, hey Paul, happy new year. Happy new year to you and your family as well. And great to have all you guys here. And let's see here. And so what do I do at my current job? So my current job, basically I work with a UI product manager designer who basically tells me what I have to build, and then I build it. So which is very stressful because I feel like I was like not underqualified, but I feel like everything they ask me to do is something that I don't know how to do, and I constantly have to look it up. But basically my responsibility is building a application that helps financial companies manage loans in default. So that's a short answer for it. So basically I'm building a product from scratch myself, and like not totally, like when I say myself, I do all the work myself. And this is where I gripe on this idea. You all guys should be building projects from scratch, because this is where you prepare yourself for work. So I built everything from scratch. The only saving grace for me is that I push the code for a pull request review, and there's a senior developer who reviews my code and says, oh, it's fine, or you have to find a better way to handle this. So I do have some feedback, but 80% of the application I have to build myself from scratch. So when it comes to implementing new features that I don't know how to do, I have to do that myself. You know what I mean? And that's why I keep telling you guys, build stuff from scratch, because there's no substitute for developing that ability to solve problems through running into problems, getting stuck, and then beating your head against the desk, or at least looking on Google, Stack Overflow, documentation, reading a bunch of stuff, trying some stuff in code editor until you solve the problem. That's how you develop that skill. And Q, hey, what's up, Paulie? Hey, how you been? It's been a while. Glad to see you here. Hope you had a happy new year. And Wally Code's here. Hey, Paul, today, time's birthday blessing to you and the fam. And listen, Wally Code, thank you so much. I hope you're doing good. Good wishes and good vibes to you and your family, and happy New Year's. And so let me know, guys, if you have any other questions. I'm starting to feel my voice losing, going out. So if you have a couple of last few rapid minute questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. And if not, you know, thank you all for like coming on, hanging out with me, chatting, talking about development stuff. Make sure you guys, you know, don't give up the grind. Keep working, keep pushing through. You guys will be able to do it. You know, I really appreciate all of you guys. Like I said, you saw where I came from. I came from being some jiu-jitsu and martial art guy, and now I'm a developer. And we have Anna here saying happy new year. Happy new year to you, Anna, and your family. Great to see you here. Anna, congratulations to her. She just recently got hired. Very amazing. And like one thing that I want to say, because I did talk to Anna a little bit, and she had some good projects in her portfolio that she made. And I can't say enough, guys, a lot of people that I see getting hired are the people that actually building projects and like struggling and figuring stuff out on their own. And she had a pretty good collections of projects. And congratulations to Anna getting hired, which is fantastic. Do I believe Web3 is the future? It might be. I think it has its place. I think there's so much stuff out there. Like I take a look at it now. Like if you learn, like your goal should be, you know, get a job as a web developer because you want to break into the field, but doesn't mean that that's the end of your journey. Like Wally here, he actually got his first job that he's working at currently doing email development. And now he's looking to get, I believe, into Shopify development. And he's learning to, like, he has a plan. He knows what he's doing. So the fact that you get a job with a particular technology doesn't mean that's the end of the world. So as the technologies change, and if, you know, Web 3.0 starts to be the thing that's taking over the world, which I think there'll be plenty of jobs in web dev and Web 3.0 and whatever else the next big thing is going to be, we should be able to pivot as developers. Like, for instance, you know, actually I'll give you a good example of Anna. Like she did a bunch of NodeJS projects, a bunch of other stuff
but she got hired as a Python developer, you know, and she did have a project with Flasks and Python. But what I'm saying is that she got the job, and guess what? She's gonna continue her journey, making sure that she's learning the tech that is required of her to do her job. And that's what we all have to be able to do. We should be able to pivot to a point where it's like, if my boss comes to me and says, Web 2.0 is dead, Web 3.0 is the thing, I'm going to learn it. I have no problem learning anything that is required for me to stay relevant. But at the same time, when I say that, it doesn't mean that you have to try to jump into Web 3.0 right now, unless that's something you're really passionate about and want to do. Like I took a more traditional route where I was like, you know, React is still huge. React is still going to be huge for a while. JavaScript is huge. JavaScript is still going to be huge for a while. So let me just learn JavaScript and let me get the job with that. But I think there's many paths. Doesn't mean that any of them is wrong. There could be 10 right paths, you know, like ASP and C# could be one of the paths for you. So don't worry about it. As long as you don't switch too much and you continue to work building and learning the skills that you need to get the job today, right? Tomorrow's going to change. You all know that. But you want to get the job today. So learn what you need for right now. And then as you get your first job, like you will learn what you need to learn. Like currently at my job, the backend that I'm working on is in Node, but there's a huge possibility because we already have another backend, which is written with Python and Django. And there's a chance that my current API that I'm working on might have to be written in Python and Django. Guess what? Guess what I'll be learning? Python and Django. But I'm learning it already while working at the job. So find a path that gets you hired and then learn whatever else you need to learn to stay relevant. I hope that makes sense. So to be honest with you, Vinyl Guy, like he says, recently he began learning email development, and I would like to see a video on that if you have the time. I know nothing about email development, believe it or not. The guy that you should ask questions to, Wally Code, and he followed Coding Phase. Everybody knows Coding Phase. Coding Phase is the one who brought all this attention to, hey, you could get a job as an email developer. You could get a job as a content editor. You don't have to wait to become a full stack developer. There's paths for you to get hired. So go on Coding Phase channel, go check him out. He has a lot of stuff on that. And because I just want to be honest with you, I know nothing about email development. So I'm just saying it as it is. And Anna says, yeah, now I have to learn Ansible and Vagrant. There's no DevOps team. It's cool though. I'm learning a lot already. That's fantastic. And that's like a great example, because once you get hired, you're going to figure out like what you need to stay relevant at your workforce, because they're going to tell you what you need to know, and you're just going to start learning it. And some companies, and most companies, if they hire you as a junior developer, they understand where you are in terms of your abilities. They understand where you are, and they're going to work with you and help you to make that transition to learn the tech that you need. And man, Anna, you're going to be an expert that I'm going to be reaching out to with questions and stuff like that. Yep. And so that's awesome. So guys, with that being said, I know like my voice is about to die. I'm going to have to like drink some more coffee to ease the pain and suffering of my vocal cords, because I don't know, every time I talk for more than an hour, like my throat starts to hurt. But anyway, I'm making an excuse for myself. But with that being said, I am going to say goodnight and end this stream. But with that being said, I appreciate all of you guys. Listen, the reason why I do this YouTube channel, you know what it is to keep it real. Don't believe the hype online. There's so much YouTube content that you guys could follow. You don't even have to watch my videos, but I'm just telling you, it's very easy to get lost in nonsense, because you have to understand there's YouTubers and their goal is to make a living on YouTube. So they're going to make type of content that's either exciting or something that's going to keep you interested in watching more YouTube, but it might not be relevant content, or at least the activity that you need to do to get hired. And that's up to you. Make a plan like I showed earlier from the most simplistic standpoint. You know, make your outline. What do you have to learn? HTML, CSS, JavaScript, you know, React Static. I'm not saying this is a plan. These are the 3 projects I'm going to build. I'm not saying this is the exact plan you guys should follow. But what I'm saying here is that you guys need to have some sort of plan and foundation that you follow. Like I shared, kind of, this is the image that I use for the things that I'm learning. And then you stick to your guns and you learn what you need to do to get hired. And that's the most important part, is that YouTube is great. Even me, I'm great. But ultimately, YouTube and anybody except you probably doesn't care if you get hired, if you could support your family. I mean, I care, to be honest. But like, the point is, what I'm saying, like, I'm not going to pay your bills. I'm not going to take care of your family. I'm not going to do all those things. It's up to you. So if it's up to you, you need to come up with your own plan. You need to have a mechanism where you could reach out to some people who you could ask, is this what I need to do? And this is kind of the reason why I have this YouTube channel, is to kind of showcase, this is what I did. This is what worked for me. I'm not talking about hype. I'm not trying to sell you courses. I'm just saying, this is what I did to get hired, because I don't want you to waste your time. And so it's up to you to do the things that you need to do. And what happens a lot of times, people don't do things long enough. They do something for a little bit, then they switch to something else, switch to something else, switch to something else. And so you never get to that point where you get any type of competency in the one thing that you're learning. So just like, you know, boiling water, it needs to reach a certain temperature. If it doesn't reach that temperature, it'll never boil. And every time you switch your tech stack, or you switch what you need to learn, you're constantly resetting that boil temperature for water. Or I hope you follow the example. So the point is, you need to pick what you need to learn to get a job, stick with it until you get the job, right? Don't jump around trying to learn 1,000 different things. But anyway, wanted to give you that final piece of advice. But I see everybody here. Happy New Year. Happy to you guys. To you guys, have a great weekend, Paul, and everyone, you guys as well. Henry, goodbye. Henry, it was great chatting with you. A lot of great questions. Thanks to my man. Taz says, thanks. Happy New Year to everyone. Man, I really appreciate you, Taz. And Henry, obviously, Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Thanks, man. Happy New Year. Hologram. Everybody, Happy New Year. Love all of you guys. And I'm going to make a toast for you guys. I hope in this incoming 2022 year, you guys do the work that is required of you to accomplish the goals that you want. I don't want you to leave things to chance. I want you to leave things in your hands based on the effort and the work that you guys are going to commit to doing. And what I want to see from all of you guys here is your continuation to building stuff from scratch and getting out there and getting hired or switching careers, wherever it is. And more importantly, health and blessings to all and everyone's families. Have a good night. I'll see you guys later. And Raul, happy birthday. Happy birthday. What am I saying? Happy New Year. You could tell it's already late here for me. And Anna says, cheers, Paul. And I'll see you guys later. Have a good night. Walter, Happy New Year. Paul, Happy New Year to you and everyone. And I bid you farewell. And I'll see you guys next time.